So yeah, this yeah, I have a few projects here, as you can see. Um, but importing a project is usually something uh, which is fairly straightforward. So if I have my hop fork here, I just deleted it, right? Uh, but it's still gonna recognize these things. But if you just point it to it, uh, it will ask about, okay, this is a Maven project, and then it recognizes the modules and the structure, and will just import this. It will take a little bit more than it just happened right now, but essentially that's the gist of it. Uh, Unlike Pentaho Kettle, there's no special settings.xml in Maven. In .m2, yeah, it's all pretty standard now. So there's nothing specific to configure, I think. We do still use Java 8, Gretchen. I'm not sure if you're using something
No,
newer than that.
I saw that when I was reading the website. So I just set up
Yeah,
another SDK and switched over to it for this. So it's and actually IntelliJ is pretty handy because it'll switch for you.
yeah,
One
yeah.
of the things that was odd was I initially brought my fork into IntelliJ and I got compilation errors, but then I went to the command line and did a Maven clean install from the command line, then went back to IntelliJ and then it was fine. So I don't know if IntelliJ
Yeah.
just didn't have the resources from the Maven repository straight or what.
Yeah. It's sometimes a lot of these things still feel like an art form, but metadata. So yeah, other than that, I think the structure of hop is pretty straightforward. You kind of know the kettle structure, Gretchen.
Mm-hmm.
This is the same structure in the sense that we have the core classes. What did change was that a lot of the database types and everything that didn't belong in the core was removed, and
Okay.
these have been moved to plugins. For example, the databases are now all split up as plugins. And the same thing goes for transforms, the former steps, and the actions, the former job entries. So if you go in engine here, where previously you would have trans steps, you would now have pipeline transforms. But these are the only ones that are still hanging around, and we're gonna try to get rid of these as well. Um, the idea is to just have everything available through plugins.
Cool.
And the reason for that is obviously because there are cases where we want to trim down the distribution to virtually nothing for Lambda. So for cases where we just want to have this thing start up quite quickly and just fire away, right? And
Yep.
yeah. So those are the things which kind of have changed. We also introduced the notion of execution engines for both pipelines and workflows. These are sort of like the abstract execution layer, but then in an open API, I guess, right? Um, so these pipeline engines. They have capabilities. It's pretty simplistic right now, supporting preview, debug, sniffing, and pause. The Beam engines, they don't support preview, sniffing, debugging, or stuff like that. Um, these flags need still to be integrated with the GUI, but we're working towards that. Uh, Yeah. So core and engine, MetaStore is being replaced by metadata as we speak. So I was just developing this, and yeah, UI has been modified as well. Uh, the old spoon is completely gone. Um, so that is now Hop GUI. And Hop GUI has real perspective plugins. Uh, we have the data orchestration perspective. Let me just build this thing for a second. Let's see. I still have a build command. So IntelliJ is pretty smart actually. The latest version that I have is from a couple of days ago, 2021 2, and that one proposes to hit Control Enter, which then runs this Maven command like this. And the advantage of doing it like this is that Maven is now run explicitly instead of through an external command. And so IntelliJ doesn't do any compilation in the background while you're running this. Because in the past I've had issues where I was just running Maven commands on the command line, and then IntelliJ was also compiling stuff in the background, and then it would say something like cannot find class or whatever, because it's running a clean and a build at the same time. So this is building the whole code base. Um, it's doing this with minus T6. This is a trick from Hans van Akkelen, which means that it's running in 6 threads at the same time.
Oh, nice.
Burning a lot of CPU on my machine. It's actually pretty. Let's just do a top. It's actually pretty intensive actually. So yeah, the idea once that is built, you go to in my case your fork, assemblies, client, target. Right, there you go. So a minute 42. Then you do unzip hop client, which is these days 330 megabytes, something like that. Hop assemblies, which gives you the distribution. Hop. That's all there is to it, basically. In my case, I have set 3 hop variables, well, 2 pointing to the audit directory and config directory. And then you just do hop GUI. Now, what I usually do is hop GUI, and I change this one. This line is used for debugging, so that I can do something like, okay, hop GUI dot shell, and then I can attach my debugger to the hop GUI process. So and it says this one 5005, and we're up and running. So now whenever I need to, let's say menu file open, I want to debug over here. And if I now hit file open, I'm going to be stuck here, right? Does that make sense? It's just quite
Perfect. Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I was hoping to see.
That's very easy. You know, I can
So,
just
Matt,
drill down, right? Yeah.
yeah, there used to be a bunch of magic you had to do if you had an external plugin that you were developing, and then you wanted to debug that plugin. You used to have to add like like classes to a run parameter. Do you remember all that? Is that still necessary? Or if I am in an external plugin, I can just do the same attached to port 5005
Yeah.
and
You can still do
so
this.
so you don't even bother with all of that like actual local
Well, let me
running
just
through the IDE.
let me just take an external plugin, right? So this is the Neo4j source code.
Yep.
I think we can do the same thing. Minus T6. There we go. This shouldn't take too long. Oh, build problem. That's usually because somebody changed the API. Yeah. Like that. Separate script, same thing probably. Just get past this. So you build it, and in our case, this is yeah, target top Neo4j. This is just put over here. So if we go out of here, we can actually attach to the same debugger, but let's go into plugins, transform, and copy this over here. So now we have an extra plugin, up Neo4j, with a library. I think that's all fairly okay. Anyway, so Hop GUI, nothing really changed. You just started like this. But instead of debugging from this session, we're going to debug from this session. So from this IntelliJ project. So same thing, you debug it. And then whenever there's like a, I don't know, the Neo4j output dialog or something, and new pipeline, here we go. Okay. But there we go. So this is also
Nice.
working.
So Matt, your run configuration doesn't have an additional ports in it except the port that you're attaching to. There's no more of that -deets name crap in there.
No, nothing. It knows the class paths. It
Sweet.
knows what is being run. It's very automatic at all these things. I haven't
Awesome.
found an issue with this. It works really great. What Eclipse does is incremental compilation and replacing inline and all these fancy things. You don't have that, but you know, I don't really miss that. You usually do these things when you're just messing about anyway. So yeah, I think that's it's good enough for me. It's stable, it's predictable, and yeah, it's been a pleasure to develop with this so far.
But so let me just make sure I understand clearly though. If I'm fixing something and I make a change to the code, I'm going to have to redeploy that plugin and then restart my debug session in order to test it, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Because
has anybody on the call? Yeah, has anybody on the call experimented with like hot swapping that code in, or has made that work? I know it's possible. I know it probably is like jumping through a bunch of hoops to get it though.
I don't know.
I was thinking of looking at it. So we have this debug module in Hop itself, which runs without any plugins getting loaded. But I was thinking of making to create a plugin to create some sort of template that can actually start Hop and load your plugin, but haven't had the time to start digging into that.
Well, get on that, Hans. No, this is great. This will get me started, and I appreciate you guys taking some time today to help me out. It doesn't look like a whole lot has changed, so it's good to be home. This is all very familiar.
Yeah. So you also had a question about compiling individual plugins and stuff like that. Yeah, like I said, it's so I use this a lot. So if I'm developing something like just a transform, right? Let's say delete. I don't know. You can just run Maven clean install in here, and it will just compile that plugin. But it does rely on the rest of the modules being available in Maven. But other than that, yeah. And if you're developing here and you want to see the errors, like I said, you just use build module. Suppose that you're using you're in delete meta. So this is that module. Then you can just build module hop transform delete. Another thing that I find useful is open in terminal. So then you get like a terminal in that folder, and then you can see what kind of
nice.
resources you have, samples, files, that sort of thing. Yeah. So then you have a bunch of terminals here that you can use.
So Matt, the Maven clean install on the Hop master project will do an install of those jars to the local Maven repository for you?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think some confusion might come from the assemblies. Well, it's also somewhat something that we inherited from Kettle, and we have been cleaning it up a little bit. But yeah, the static package contains a bunch of resources like default config, but also the scripts, the license, README. Then it becomes harder in the sense that all these plugins.
Matt, what were those 3 variables that you said you?
Yeah. Let me just
sorry.
get a new. Hop. So hop audit directory, config directory, and this is the new one that was invented this morning, shared JDBC directory, so that you can put your JDBC drivers in a shared location, so that you don't have to put them in the plugin.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
It becomes independent of the distro. Typically, you would go to plugins.
And what's in that config directory?
So typically, you would say, "Oh, I'm going to put my driver here," but that's horrible for a lot of people. So the config directory.
Yeah.
Normally, let's just go back. Normally, the default config directory is this one. If you don't set anything, any variables, this is where you would end up. And it will contain all the settings that you change. For example, options. You have these options, but also the plugin options for enabling or disabling the environment system, and the look and feel, all these options. So if you go to...
So is there no longer a kettle.properties file? Or
No.
a pop.properties file?
That's the config.json file now. And it's split up into system
Gotcha.
properties
All right.
and the GUI properties, which are less important. The default locale, which was also like a file in .hop, is also put in here. And the plugins can also write into this. And to do that, we now have a tool called hop config minus help. And that one basically allows you to create new environments, set system properties, but it's a pluggable system, so we can add more features to it as we go along. But because yeah, sometimes when you're on a
Cool.
server or in Docker container, you want command line options. Yeah. Yeah.
And if I don't have those variables set, where does that config.json live?
In the config folder of your distribution. So if
Okay.
this is the home folder, then you will see a config folder and an audit folder. The audit folder is also pretty cool because it will remember things that you did. So, for example, the location of the dialogues, right? So they pop up in the same location. It gives like a stable view, but it also remembers the last environment that you used, and in that environment, you know, it will remember the last Git project. Yeah, please don't do this. Oh dear, I messed up stuff. I'm in the middle of doing stuff. But in any case, so
No worries.
it remembers the last open files. It remembers a lot of stuff. And you can actually go into that config folder, that audit folder, sorry. You will also see the hop UI log, which is the old spoon.log. And for example, for hop 2, you would say, okay, what is the state of the data orchestration perspective? And it will say, okay, these are the files that were loaded in that perspective. What were the last files that have been used? This one. You have the shell states, last pipeline run configuration list. Usually just small lists, right? And typically you have events as well. So it captures all the file open save events. And you know, this is not as spammy as I would expect it originally, but yeah, it just says okay. The group is hop2, the type is file, and the name is this file, and this was the data that was open. And yeah, I want to add more lists like last used, actions, transforms, that sort of stuff. So the audit manager, the audit
That's great.
manager is capable of saving and registering events. And there's like an audit manager utility, the GUI. Let's just get the last execution, just last used value, or add the last used value, which makes it very easy to say, what was the last used case here? What was the last thing I entered, and then just pick that back up. So, but these are methods that can be used quite easily all over the place. Just use this, and then you're good to go.
That's great.
So yeah, this makes the population of these more complex dialogues, even things like the Zoom, right? So sometimes you have this thing where, okay, so I just need to exit this thing for a bit, and it's zoomed 150%, and then you switch to another, and then you go back, and yeah, I don't know which one was this. So this needs to be 150%. You need to be confident that, okay, I don't have to navigate all over again. I don't need to
Yeah.
open my files again.
So
It brings
Matt,
peace.
are the workflows and pipelines JSON now, or are they still XML?
They're still XML.
Okay.
I don't think
Is there?
yeah, it's tricky because I'm not sure that JSON is fully like UTF-8 capable actually. I think we could get into trouble if we switch to JSON. I'm not completely sure. I need to do some investigation there. Yeah, there have been questions about why don't we just serialize everything to the metadata store, unify it all, and we might just do that at some point.
Yeah, there
It's
was a bit of a mental exercise that I went through trying to figure out, like, I would create a data set and the data set definition would go to the Metastore, but my data would land on the hard drive. And so
yeah.
I was wondering if you're still sort of working through what the rules are as to what lands on the file system versus what goes in the Metastore, even though I know the Metastore is still on the file system, but you know what I'm saying, as far as like logically how things are
Yeah,
separated.
logically, only metadata goes into the Metastore, right?
Right.
I've tried.
Yep.
I thought about putting data in there,
But
but it's really not ideal. So yeah, it's possible that we can change our minds in the future. But right now, this is how it's set up. I
yep.
think in general, it's a big improvement towards what we had in Kettle. Um, but yeah, I think the Metastore was an idea that James Dixon and I had at some point, and it was a good idea, right? But I think it was way too fine-grained. It was yeah, too low level. The namespaces, the all the various types and this and that. We never used any of it.
Well, we were famous for having overly complex architectures, Matt. That's what we were good at.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, Hop is trying to simplify a lot of things, and yeah, but some things you just can't simplify it any further. You have to say, okay, let's.
Yeah.
But I think that it's working pretty well. So we tie everything down by the environment. Everything is linked to an environment, and then everything else follows. So I think that's a good idea. So even if it's in Git, it knows that this is the project, the repository. So that sort of stuff, I think, is working fine. Switching automatically. Um, but yeah, it's. I think we're getting there.
No, this is great. Like I said, this helps a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Bart and Hans and I we had a discussion about this last night. I think right now we have to worry about feature creep. Try not to do too much. I think we've packed a lot of functionality in the Hop first version. I think it's time to just tie it down, stop expanding the scope. So as far as I'm concerned, with the addition of Git, we're sort of like in bug feature, bug mode, bug hunting mode, and stability mode, documentation mode. Uh, I think it's time to stop adding architectural things. We might add more transforms like Kafka stuff and some stuff left and right. Um, some minor things we might add is things like VFS plugins, but that's more like porting of existing stuff. I don't think we have an architectural change there. And if time permits, we'll have some cool features to add here and there. But in general, I think we have the structure that we want. And yeah.
We have a lot of functionality that is new to most kettle users, so we'll have to be careful not to overload with functionality as well, and gradually move in more features after a first release.
Yep. Yeah, I think.
So Bart,
Go ahead.
oh, yeah, Bart, if you would like to do just a one-on-one with me at some point, and if you could talk me through sort of what's new and different from kettle to hop, I'd be happy to help you sort of put a documentation framework around that, because I know, Matt, you were saying that you expect a lot of community to come from outside of kettle, but I also think you're going to have a large population like me who unfortunately is tainted by kettle in everything that I look at in hop. So it'd be good to have like a documentation framework for, sort of like a kettle recovery document.
Yeah.
Right. So going from kettle to hop. So Bart, if you want to help me understand sort of the shift, I'd be happy to help you put that together.
That's great. Yeah.
We don't have to do that today. My kids have to eat lunch at some point.
Okay. We can have a walk through what we currently have as documentation, and there as well the goal is to treat documentation as code. We encourage people to create bug tickets for issues they find in the code. We can have a look at that as well.
Cool.
Well, whenever that works for you, maybe we can have that discussion offline in Mattermost and find a time that works for us.
Yeah, I'll reach out to you next week. My time is really scattered right now, but you'll know when I'm in there, because I'll be asking you 100 questions on the Mattermost channel, and we'll just pick out. We'll pick out a time that works for both of us next week.
Wonderful.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and if you ever want to dive back into coding, or anybody else, there are a bunch of cases marked in Jira as low-hanging fruit. So you can search on these keywords, or easy, or stuff like that. There's a bunch of keywords that are basically saying, okay, probably it wouldn't take you more than an hour or something to do this. So yeah, feel free to pick them up. And if you get stuck,
that sounds great.
just ask us.
I'll definitely look for those.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the same for the other people on the call, Ingo and Peter.
Yeah, so I think what would be useful, Ingo here, by the way, it came up yesterday as well, to have maybe a series of mini videos. So I was asking, do you guys have like a YouTube channel or something?
Yes, we have.
Yeah. I've seen from some other projects where they really have some, I don't know, 3 to 5 minute introductory videos of certain things. For kettle, I would guess something like how to set up an environment, how to bootstrap a project. Just walk people through.
That's such a good idea. That's such a good idea.
Yeah, just some basic stuff, right?
Yeah, we started doing that. Yeah, this is stuff that Bart is very passionate about, and I completely agree with you, Ingo, that yeah, the idea is to not create lengthy videos, but basically say, okay, here's like 30 seconds on how to do that. I think we even want to integrate this into the Hop GUI itself. Yeah, a lot of that is dependent on another project that we have going called Lean, which aims to offer dashboards and everything. We want to integrate that with Hop as well, but that's probably going to happen after the 1.0 release of Hop. It's a little bit of a stretch goal.
Can contribute to those videos. So let's say if I wanted to make like a 3-minute video of something, would I send it to you guys and you would upload to the...
Yeah, send it to Bart. We actually also have like a Google Drive, which should be public, right?
Yeah, but we're also still looking a bit at guidelines, because we would love contributions on these videos and stuff like that. But we would like to have one, that they all kind of look the same, that they have the same style. But
that is the hard part. What we need is a consistent way of creating these videos. It doesn't make any sense to have tens of different styles depending on who contributed a video. So we need guidelines, best practices that we can stick to, and acceptance criteria for videos, things like these. But it's just like the documentation discussion. It's something we can discuss in Mattermost in the documentation channel, and I'm definitely looking forward to any feedback that you have, feedback or input or whatever your ideas are.
Okay. Yeah, I'll share some notes from one of the projects that I'm following, and they have some really good examples of documentation videos, and maybe you can just copycat some of those. As
that would be awesome. Yeah.
Consistency. And if you're done ready with that, just drop a note in the channel, and if I find some time, then I hope I can also produce some.
Sounds great.
Yeah, the thing that helped us with the certain look and feel was the work on the look and feel, the color schemes, the logos. It's certainly not final yet, but it's better than having nothing, and it does give the website and the tool and everything a consistent look. And I think for videos, especially on YouTube, you can select like a default thumbnail and a default this, and I think it should be just a couple of guidelines, and then we're good to go. Don't overthink it, I guess.
Yeah, and people will use YouTube playlists, right? So, and they might watch 10 videos in a row, so they should
exactly.
like consistent, like an online course, right? It shouldn't be that it's all different with different setups, users, and whatnot.
That's a good point. Yeah, we are working on having like a demo project, demo environment that we can maybe use for the samples that are referenced in the videos. So that might make it nicely coherent, so that you don't have to download or do anything. You just have the environment available. Yeah,
that would be very useful, because it's then it's reproducible for someone who just wants to play around.
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. I think we can do this before 1.0. Yeah. Cool. Any help is welcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing how many people are willing to help out and contribute. But the result is that help is moving forward quite quickly, actually. It's almost scary. I've seen it before. It's moving much faster than Kettle did back in the days. And that was pretty quickly.
In a lot of diverse areas, the containers Kubernetes is definitely not something that we would have invested time in, but it all grew pretty quickly since I think since the first Hangout we had, and then the first virtual block, things really started moving, and so is traction on social media. So things are starting to pick up, and it all looks very promising.
Yeah. And then strategically, I think once we are a bit more stable on the Beam side, I think we can hit the Spark, Flink, Beam communities and reach out to Google. Sergey was very interested in Hop for running Beam pipelines on Dataflow. He's the PM of Google Dataflow. So I think things are looking quite good. I'm in awe. All right, guys. Hope this helped a little bit.
Well, thanks
I'm
for the
going-
time, you guys, today.
Oh,
This helped a
anytime,
lot.
Rich. And say hello to Doug for me. Tell him he's always welcome with code if he's bored or something.
Yeah, he's still pretty busy with COVID-19 here in Africa, but I resigned last week because we're heading back to the US, and my job is very local here. So I'm excited to have free time. I don't think he's going to have any anytime soon. But he's always supporting from the stands. He's always telling me things he wants me to tell you, Matt. He's like, "Tell Matt I want Hop to do this."
Well, in that case, let him know that if he needs anything from us in his COVID-19 fight, that we'd be happy to help out as well.
I think he's counting on it, Matt.
All right.
Yeah, pretty cool use case to get started with.
Yeah, actually,
He's got
for
some really
Neo4j,
great.
for Neo4j, it's been also like a collaborative projects, our COVID-19 trackers, and then there's like a whole bunch of projects going on. It's been pretty
That's
popular as a community project, yeah. So it's pretty cool what you can do if you have the data, that is.
All right.
Well, have a fantastic weekend, guys.
Yep. Thank
Talk
you.
to you
Thanks,
later.
everybody.
Cheers.
Have a
Cheers,
good
bye.
one. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.